Well, everyone, the wait is over, and we are here for week one of college football here on the Football Expert. I can't believe we are here for another season already. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Like this video if you enjoy it. Comment your thoughts and opinions. As always, as we get into a big matchup this week, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Notre Dame's biggest matchup of the year, most likely, especially with the loss from the Florida State Seminoles in week 0. And possibly one of the biggest matchups non-conference wise in all of football, depending on how big Texas A&M this year is, with first year under Mike Elko, and whether Marcus Freeman can finally crack the glass ceiling and make it into the playoffs, even though that this would be a different version of making it into the playoffs because it's a 12-team playoff and not a 14. But either way, not much more delay because we got a lot to cover already in this video. So let's get started with today's video. So let's start it off with the matchup. You're looking at matchup dynamics all over the place. First off, we got to start with Mike Elko and Riley Leonard. Both of them were obviously at Duke last year. Last year, Mike Elko did a good job at being able to develop that Duke program, and the year prior as well. That's what got him the Texas A&M job, along with the fact that he was the prior DC. But because he is the new head coach, and after the firing of Jimbo Fisher, there were also a lot of pieces that were lost. That included the defensive line coach and interim head coach at that moment, Fran Brown, who went to Syracuse, along with the loss of some key pieces on that defensive line, most notably being Walter Nolan. On the other side of the ball for the Aggies, you have Connor Wegman at quarterback, who it was a superb star in the little playing time that he got last year, little because of injury, but was pretty good in his playing time there, but is very inexperienced, even compared to, compared to Riley Leonard, who is much more experienced, has 2 years basically of starting quarterback play under his belt, with some of it coming also from the same time that he got injured at the end of last season as well. So definitely in a situation there for the Aggies. So let's head to Notre Dame here for a minute. And when it comes to Notre Dame, you're looking at a couple of key factors. You did lose some pieces to the NFL draft, but in terms of this year, you did lose Charles Jagusaw on the offensive line. But here I would point out this mention is this. A lot of people are talking about this as a massive impact and something that is just absolutely devastating and switches this game in its entirety, and I just think that's off. Don't get me wrong, Jagusaw was a good player with a lot of potential, and hopefully will eventually be the next future starting left tackle of Notre Dame after the season, if not the right tackle, if you get good play from Antonio Cap. And I know I may be saying that wrong. If anybody knows how to pronounce it, the new left tackle for Notre Dame, please let me know in the comment section. But when it comes to looking at this offensive line, it's young across the board. Jagusaw had 1 start. This entire offensive line, all 5 of them have a combined 6 starts, and that's without Jagusaw. So when you're looking at this team, don't get me wrong, losing Jagusaw is a disappointing thing. But at the same time, this is not a Notre Dame team that was coming in with Joe Alt and Blake Fisher, and they lost Joe Alt. Like, this is not a definitive guy, first-round pick like Joe Alt was last year. So I feel like people are starting to make a little bit too much out of it, of like, oh, Jagusaw was going to be a first-round, he was going to be fantastic. I think that Jagusaw would have played better than Kappa would have played this year, but not by enough in week 1. I just don't see it being that big of a massive deal. And like the difference of Notre Dame wins or Notre Dame loses, or Texas A&M wins or Notre Dame and Texas A&M loses. So I just don't see that happening with this game. And then also for Notre Dame in the backfield, you got Jeremiah Love along with Jadarian Price. Notre Dame obviously has a little lightning and thunder there, with the thunder coming from Price a little bit stronger, and Love being a dynamic player, along with the fact of a lot of transfer wide receivers brought in, and the superbly talented Mitchell Evans at tight end. Guys like Bo Collins, Chris Mitchell, and even Jaden Harris, even though he'll probably play Harrison, even though he'll probably play a little bit more kick return rather than wide receiver. We'll see if Notre Dame plays him at wide receiver, or even where a guy like Jordan Faison, the now famed lacrosse player and national champion as well, is going to play at that wide receiver position. We'll see where that's at. But the thing that I haven't mentioned, which is probably the most important part of this Notre Dame roster, is the defense, because, man, it is going to be good. Benjamin Morrison and Xavier Watts round out the top end of the defense in the secondary, along with Riley Mills and Howard Cross at the front end. This defense is extremely experienced, has a lot of potential and a lot of talent, and a lot of overall just wealth of just being able to connect with one another and stuff like that. You do have a little bit of an issue at defensive end, edge depth. I'm a little bit concerned about that. We'll see how RJ Oben is. Oben also a transfer from Duke, so I'm kind of interested to see how he'll play. I'm interested to see how the CB2 position works, if there's any sort of switch throughout the game, if there's any sort of issues. I just don't see as many issues coming from that, but we'll see. But when it comes down to this game, we're going to boil it down to 3 categories, and we're going to come away with the majority of it going to one side, and I'm going to pick that as my winner. So, first category is who has the better quarterback. In my opinion, you look at this game, you look at Connor Wegman versus Riley Leonard, and I'm sorry, but you gotta go with Leonard. Leonard is a possible first-round draft pick, and don't get me wrong, Wegman's not bad, but you can't look at Wegman and say he has developed and he is there and he is better than Leonard right now. You just can't. You can say that there's some injury concerns with how Leonard will play after his injury, but at the same time, I just don't see the comparison there. I think Leonard is just the better quarterback. So there is that. And I think Notre Dame's wide receivers, we'll see. I don't know how they play into it and what the factor will be. But it definitely could be a factor with if Notre Dame's wide receivers, the transfers that come in, if they struggle, maybe Leonard looks worse, but we'll see. Second factor being who is a better head coach, and that goes to Mike Elko and Texas A&M. Mike Elko is a more experienced head coach. He has had less issues, has done a lot with a Duke program that has very little resources relative to a program like Notre Dame or Texas A&M. And don't get me wrong, I think Marcus Freeman has done a good job with this program, but by no means has he had this program at the same even heights that Brian Kelly had it, much less the heights of Notre Dame fans want with national championships, playoff appearances, playoff wins, New Year's Six Bowl wins, so on and so forth. So I think that Marcus Freeman in his third year, at the same program, that is a little bit of an advantage, but I think that Mike Elko, a better head coach, a little bit better with time management, a little bit more experience overall, so I will give it. And then the final category, I think, is the most decisive one. When we're looking at an environment like the one we're looking at, Kyle Field, one of the toughest places to play in all of college football, anybody would tell you that. But when we're looking at that, that also means one thing, the key statement that almost everybody in college football knows: defense travels. It doesn't matter where you are, defense travels. Unlike offense sometimes. Defensively, the better team is Notre Dame. And I know some people will argue with me about that, but I just don't see the argument. You have 3 All-Americans, Howard Cross, Benjamin Morrison, and Xavier Watts, and they're all first-team All-Americans. Preseason, postseason last year, you have guys like Riley Mills, you have guys like RJ Oben. Oben had 10-plus sacks. This is a Notre Dame team that defensively is top 5 in the country, and in my opinion, I think that they're number 1 coming into this year, and maybe you can call it a little bit of Notre Dame bias, but I just think that they're a better team when I'm looking at it defensively, and I think that they have more talent when you're looking at this team, and along with the experience at linebacker with guys like Jack Kaiser, you do have a redshirt freshman in Drake Bowen. It's another one of your linebackers, and then you also have some young talent. I'm not even going to try to pronounce Kyron's name, but the new linebacker out of Southern California looks like an absolute freak out on the football field when watching him in some of his high school tape. So I think that he'll definitely play well. So when I'm looking at this game, 2 out of the 3 of the main points when looking at this game go to the Irish. I think if you're looking for keys to the game, I think you're looking at a team that in Notre Dame, you got to be able to control the trenches. One, you got to be able to run the ball, which those kind of go hand in hand. And three, you can't make turnovers. You can't have stupid turnovers. You got to be able to keep. I think if this game is a clean game for Notre Dame, if they don't make mistakes, if they don't make turnovers, they win the trenches, they should not have an issue at all winning this game. So that's going to wrap it up for today's first prediction of 2024 college football season. Hit the 2 videos down below and hit the subscribe button up here as well. As always, have a great day. Bye.